We are Doug and Kaylee, and we are a freshly married couple that are in the middle of an adventure to become full-time RVers and see our beautiful country. We purchased our first truck and travel trailer in summer 2020, and it has already been such an experience. In this and the upcoming videos, you will see our cross-country road trip to get married at the Grand Canyon and honeymoon in the West, all during a pandemic. The first half of our trip, we are joined by my sister Sarah, our dog Cammie, and my mom Dawn. Join us on this adventure as we enjoy the ups and downs of travel in a new RV.
Okay, episode 2 of our road trip to get married at the Grand Canyon. We're going to be going to Palo Duro Canyon State Park in Texas. And it's a long, fun drive, so let's get right into it. Alright, so as we get into Texas, we start noticing this helicopter. It looks like it's carrying something on the side of the road, and I'm super confused. I've never seen anything like it, and it looks like it's a telephone pole or something hanging from it, but it just didn't make sense to me. As we're going, we realize it's not a telephone pole. It just doesn't, it looks crazy, and I start having flashbacks when we get to the back side of it, which you can't see from the footage, but it was sawing down trees along the edge of the power lines. I had flashbacks to 007 back in the day with Pierce Brosnan, but it was pretty cool to see that. And then we're getting into Dallas. Big city, we had no idea how big. I mean, I've been in Miami before, driven through it many times, and it's a big city. Dallas is insane as far as how many big cities surround it. It's the main city center of Dallas, and then you have Fort Worth, and then the suburbs have high rises. It's crazy. We ended up making a wrong turn at one point. Super stressful situation, hence the lack of footage. So we go underneath this overpass, and it takes us a whole nother way, and we make it out safe. Thank God. Here we're passing one of a few wide loads we saw on the trip. I think this was the first, and it was just so amazing how big this was and the piece of machinery it took to move it. We realized that we're pretty sure they're all parts to those wind turbines you see out there. They're everywhere. The big windmills. I mean, literally thousands of them in the plains of northern Texas as we're going up to Amarillo. And this is somewhere I'd never been. I'd never been in Texas in general, and it was very beautiful. Not rolling mountains or anything beautiful, but just open expanse, prairie, like cowboy type stuff like you see in the movies. It was awesome. There was a lot of small towns we ran into out there. It was interesting to see. And here we are. We'd just gone through the entrance gate of Palo Duro Canyon State Park. We found it by chance, just Google Map and things that are in the area. We knew that Amarillo was about the right distance for us to do in that the day leaving Mississippi. And we saw this state park right outside of it. And it did not disappoint. Absolutely awesome. Not like anything else in the area, which was very interesting. From this point on, when we left Amarillo going west, the landscape just did a flip. It went from being flat and hilly with no trees, nothing, to all of a sudden starting to really look like the West with buttes and canyons and washes, and it was very awesome. So I'm going to show here the whole trip into the canyon, and that's because it's definitely not for the faint of heart. When we were looking up information about Palo Duro, we thought there was a good chance we'd be getting there after dark. And some of the I don't know if it was forums or TripAdvisor, anything I could find were saying that the drive-in is a little intimidating and they would not advise doing it with an RV in the dark. So now that I've done it, I mean, it's pretty standard, just sheer drops off the edges, but as long as you drive safe, I mean, it's fine. But I will say it would have been a real waste to come after dark because it was beautiful. And we skipped and rushed a lot of things that day because we knew we wanted to try to see it in the daylight. And I'm glad we did. Because on this trip, we're driving late into the day and leaving early in the morning. So we're not seeing a whole lot of this stuff in the daylight, which is regrettable. But in the future, that's not how we're going to be doing things. Look at this. I mean, after what you just saw, the footage of those planes, would you have thought this was right around the corner? It's just something else. So the map we got leading us to our campsite, it was fairly good. Honestly, you're in this canyon that has a stream that runs through it, and there's a lot of campsites, a lot of different areas, and they're loops, and it's not that well marked. So if you're here, just keep in mind that there's a few bridges you go over, and it's a good way of keeping track of where you are. So if you're on each bridge is labeled on the map. So if you see that you have 6 bridges to go over before your campground, notice how many bridges you drive over, and it'll give you an idea. Because we ended up missing our turn, and we had to go the long way around the loop, and it just made, when we're pushing for daylight, it lost us 10 minutes that maybe we could have used to set up and get some better photos. So here we are. Give you a glimpse of this site. It's a pull-through site, but it's kind of like one of those off-ramp pull-throughs. So it's curved. And look at the inside. We have a picnic table and like a covered gazebo type thing. That's me going to the bathroom. It's awesome. That outside picnic area. That building in the background is the bathrooms and showers. It was very close. And you can't beat that view. Really cool place. I definitely advise everybody try to go there. They did not have sewer. It was just water and electric. But there's dump stations, which we ended up using the next morning. But it's just a really cool place. And I want to say it wasn't even that expensive. The worst part is they charge you day use on top of the campsite. So for 4 people, it was $8 a person on top of, I think, the $27 for the campsite. Not bad if you're staying a few days, but it made a $30 campground a $60 campground real quick. It's me getting the RV leveled. So this place is super dark at night, like a lot of state and national parks, but this place has no light. Okay, so as we reach the end of the video, we're in Palo Duro Canyon State Park in Texas. This is day 2 of our trip, and if you remember from the end of the last video, our furnace wasn't working. It was below freezing the first night, and it looks like it's going to be below freezing every night from here on out. So we need that furnace working. I was stressed all day thinking about who I could call, where we could go, find a mechanic in Amarillo, what we could do. And we got there late once again because we planned 12-hour drive days basically, and we had a schedule we wanted to keep. So we figured we could live off a little space heater and the fireplace if I couldn't get the furnace working, but priority number one for me was that furnace. So we get to Palo Duro. I decide to unscrew the outside access panel to the furnace, which is directly below the refrigerator access panel. At least in our RV, you see the little drip hose from the refrigerator condensation. Directly below that, it's the furnace. And it looks like a furnace, which I have no idea anything about. So I saw that there was a switch on it that was switched to off. So I had high hopes that would fix it. I switched it to on, tried the furnace, and I heard clicking, the same sound the refrigerator makes when it tries to ignite on propane. And the clicking would happen a few times and stop, happen a few times, stop. And then the light that is on the furnace itself inside that space would start flashing, meaning that it was like a reset, like there was something wrong. So I was looking, feeling, touching, and the only thing I could think of, because it's brand new, is if there's something faulty with the furnace. I saw that there's a few switches for safety that sometimes can get jammed up. But it sounds like that normally happens for something that's old, covered in dust or something. It didn't seem specifically common in newer items. So I really didn't know if that was it. I ended up going into our giant pack that the dealer gave us of all of our paperwork for the RV, which is basically the owner's manual and installation instructions of every piece of equipment that wasn't designed or manufactured by Winnebago. So the refrigerator, the microwave, the oven, everything. I even have manuals for things that I don't know that are definitely installed on the RV, like tank heaters. If they are installed, they must not work too well, because our tanks froze a lot on this trip. But I digress. I find the furnace paperwork and I'm reading through it. I learn a lot about how the furnace works, because literally the deal was, on our walkthrough when we were purchasing the RV, I went to the air conditioner, turned it on, the air conditioner worked. I saw a setting for furnace. Please excuse me, Florida guy, I don't know anything about a furnace. I've literally never seen one in my life. I just figured that meant the heat. And I wasn't going to turn the heat on, the air conditioner worked, so the heat must work, just like the central air conditioning in a house. I was wrong, and I have learned. I'm sorry. We should have checked the furnace itself, which we did not. So I set it to furnace on that, I end up reading how all that works and how to use the thermostat to make the furnace work properly and what everything means. Anyway, I end up seeing instructions on how to install it and a little diagrams. Very hard to read, but you get the gist. It shows you where the propane goes into it. And at this point I'm thinking, if it's the propane, I mean, RVs are notorious for them leaving things unattached. So if it's a propane, maybe I can fix it. If it's anything else that requires a part or a piece, I can't do anything anyway. So let me just go for the one thing I know I could fix. So I go to the outside, I'm looking in this space, and it looks like I don't see the hose connected to the top of the furnace, which at the very top, right above where there's a shield because the furnace ignites there, I can see a spot that comes up with threads to be screwed onto with nothing attached. And I'm pretty sure that's where the propane should be going. So that kind of excites me. I go inside, and directly beneath our refrigerator is the grate that gives you access to the top half of the furnace. I think it's for accessing your converter and maybe any hoses, things like that, if there's a leak or something, because everything runs through there. It's underneath the cabinets. Take that off, look inside, and clear as day, propane hose just lying there, and it's got a cap on the end, a nice brass cap. So I'm very excited at this point. Luckily I brought all my tools, so I was prepared to fix things along the way. I have a heck of a time unscrewing this cap, I'm not gonna lie. I don't know if it was ignorance on my part, something I wasn't sure how to handle, or if they cinched those things down with like an impact gun at the manufacturer. But the thing was on there tight. It had me questioning if I should be unscrewing it because it was so tight. Unscrew it, realize that it is going, from looking at it, it looks like it's going to fit perfectly where I need it to go. There's a little access hole above, directly above that the nipple that I'm supposed to screw it onto from above. So I know it's made perfectly for that hose to go through that spot, but that makes it so I don't have access from the inside of the RV to tighten it. So I had Sarah go outside. I put the hose in there and I try to keep it straight because it's a rubber hose. It's not exactly super malleable and it bends, and you want to keep it straight to get the threads straight. And she kind of finger tightened it as I held the hose from the inside. Then I go outside and I did my best to tighten it with a wrench. There's very small space in there to work. And I'm sorry I don't have footage of any of this. We're really working on trying to film through stressful moments, but at the time, they're trying to cook dinner. We got the doggy. It's our second night. It's below freezing, and I'm just trying to get the heat on. So I'm sorry I don't have any footage of any of this. If you guys want to see it up close, leave it in the comments below, and at some point I'll go out there and I'll take it apart and I'll show you guys exactly what it is. But it's not rocket science specifically to the propane hose itself. Anything else, I don't have a clue. So end up getting it tied on there pretty good. I should also mention I did turn off the propane because when I first unscrewed that, the cap to the hose, I smelled propane, tightened it back, turned the propane off at the tanks, and I ran the oven or the cooktop for a minute to burn off the excess propane because I didn't want it filling up the RV. Unscrewed it, connected it, went back, turned the propane on, reset the furnace manually because the button is on or reset, something like that. So I reset it, turned the furnace on, nothing happens. Very disappointing. Then I remembered that I read in the manual that to do like a soft reset from the interior of the RV, you turn the thermostat off completely, let it wait a few minutes or 15 seconds, something like that, and restart it, which I did. Turned it up to like 90 degrees so that there was no issues. I hear a click, 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 and pow, you hear this ignition like a rocket going off, and it was the best moment ever. You go outside, you feel the exhaust coming out of that thing. It's super hot. Within seconds, you feel the heat in the RV. Now, there was smoke, light smoke, and a bit of an odor, which it also warned about in the manual, that's common because there's paint that will be in these areas that will get burned off, and there's also dust and things in your lines that haven't been blown out. It was concerning to me, but the girls, being from Indiana, they've dealt with furnaces before, and they claim that every year there's a smell. It's like the smell of burnt dust because you haven't used the furnace in 9 months, and they weren't concerned, which made me feel better. And in about 15 minutes, the smell was gone. We had warmth, and that was the beginning of our propane issues, which we'll get to in more videos with leaks and just going through it faster than we ever could have imagined. But the heat worked. So that's our furnace story. If you'd like to know anything else, you can ask in the comments. I'll help with what I can. I don't know a whole lot, but I know what worked for me. So thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video. Join us in our next video where we make it to Monument Valley and stay in Goulding's RV Resort right inside of Monument Valley. And it was awesome. Worth seeing for sure. Hope you enjoyed it.